Hi everyone, welcome to Qiuyi and the Company. Today I have my dearest friend Vanessa here. She is one of my friends I really look up to. She's very intelligent, extremely bubbly, super caring. I feel very lucky to have met her about a year ago. So I'm actually going to ask Vanessa to give you guys a little bit of background about what she does and maybe where she moved from. Because I know you've only been in Charlotte for a little bit over a year. Right?
Next month, yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa. Super happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Yes, we're doing mimosa too.
Mimosas, those are my favorites. So I am from South Bend, Indiana.
Woohoo!
Never heard that before. So I moved there pretty young when I was around 5 or so. Stayed locally for about 25 years before moving to Charlotte. And just for work, I am a remote mortgage system engineer working for one of the top companies in California.
Yeah, girl tech. You go, girl. Yeah, so we met about a year ago, I think.
Yes, you were my first friend in Charlotte.
I know. I met her on Bumble BFF. Sponsor me, Bumble. Thank you. But I have the nickname of Vanessa gave me, I think.
Yes,
mayor.
You are the Bumble ambassador.
Yeah, yes. The mayor of Bumble BFF for Charlotte. I really, truly met a lot of amazing girls. Career-driven, also family-orientated. Came from many different family backgrounds and just generally different places in the U.S. And I get to introduce everybody to each other and expand.
You're very good at that.
Thank you. And expand like the whole kind of network or just our tribe in general, I think. So
yeah, I think you and I have built a really good life in Charlotte off of Bumble BFF.
Like off of a really unfortunate circumstances.
Yes. But look what we did.
Yeah, we both were fresh out of a very long-term relationship. Hers was a lot longer. We both were, I think, living with our significant other back then. So we had to basically start all over with the living situation, figuring it out. I didn't move cities. I know. But I moved to different neighborhood and, stuff. So you, on the other hand, I think just moved all the way from the Midwest over to the dirty South.
I always knew I was not going to live in Indiana long term. It's too cold and the winters are really harsh. Cold. Yes, I'm cold all the time. It's terrible. So I always knew early on that I was not going to stay in Indiana long term. And then I stayed to be close to my mother. And after about a year and a half ago, I got out of a long-term relationship. And at that time, it was just kind of, do I decide to move into sign another year lease in an apartment or kind of relocate and do what I've always wanted to do, which was live somewhere on the East Coast. So
closer to the water, still not too far.
Yes, I'm a beach person. I'm a beach bum. So. Charlotte's a reasonable amount of time. It's a day trip away from the coast, so I can.
But I think you miss Lake Michigan, right? Like it's so close.
The coast is so great just because the water is warm. I love that. And that was something that was like, I just forget about it. And every time I get in there, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's warm. Lake Michigan is freezing, like 60 degrees to the point to where I would go swimming and I would come out. My body was red from being so cold. So, the coast here is better. It's nice.
I'm very glad to hear that. I'm glad she is liking it. There's so many places in the U.S., along the East Coast. So I know you had a few options and then you narrowed it down to Charlotte. Is there a particular reason you chose Charlotte over the other places? I think someone was Virginia Beach and maybe Raleigh too.
Yes, Virginia Beach and Raleigh. So I decided I did a lot of research on on multiple cities along the East Coast. And
she's a researcher.
I am. I love to research.
Planner.
You're a planner, yes.
That's why we got along.
Yes. So I narrowed it down to those 3 cities, did a solo trip for about 2 weeks and spent about 3 to 5 days in each city. And
Smart tip, people.
Yes. I loved Virginia Beach. Raleigh, I rolled out pretty quickly once I drove in. It wasn't for me.
Same
it was
vibe.
A little too historic for me.
I see.
Yeah. In Charlotte, as soon as I drove into Charlotte, I just got that feeling. which is weird because you know me, I don't ever say that, but I got a gut feeling that Charlotte was the one for me. And after spending about 4 days in Charlotte by myself, just kind of doing some sightseeing, kind of tours and things, it was the people really that made me stay in Charlotte. Just everyone, I mean, they say it's like a city of transplants, and it's 100% true. The only person so far that I've met in Charlotte that has been born and raised here is my boyfriend, David. Everyone else is like from here or from somewhere else, and they've moved here later on in life.
We love David, by the way.
And so it felt like home. Everyone is so sweet, and that southern charm
hospitality
that everyone talks about is so true. It is 100% true. And I was not used to it. It was really shocking.
Don't move here, please. Our real estate is so high right now. Yes. So stay where you are. No,
yeah.
Welcome.
Get out.
Speaking of David, so you guys met shortly or maybe right before you moved to Charlotte, right?
I met David during my solo trip here.
Right.
I wasn't exactly I was not looking to date, but I got a recommendation from a friend to get on Bumble BFF and to get on Bumble just to see the kind of people that there were and kind of
because she didn't know anyone at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And that helped it. Well, I didn't even bother in Raleigh because I knew I didn't want to live in Raleigh, but in Virginia Beach, it did help. And the military background at the Virginia Beach, I have a ton of respect for the military. Mm-hmm. You know, my best friend Chelsea's in the military, but the constant like flying by of jets and stuff was a little too much.
Intense.
Yes. But so that helped in Charlotte, but also because there were so many neighborhoods in Charlotte that I was not familiar with. I didn't know what neighborhoods, like what the vibe was in each neighborhood. I hate saying that word, but it helps. So I met some people through Bumble and Bumble BFF and kind of started talking to them, asked them what kind of neighborhoods they would recommend and things. And that helped narrow it down to the neighborhood I live in now. But that's how I met David, but I wasn't really trying to continue those conversations after. I was just kind of trying to have casual conversations. But we just clicked really well. And we texted for about a month while I moved back to Indiana to get everything settled, the apartment, and get everything boxed up. And then he was the first person I met here. So technically he was my first friend.
I know.
Here in Charlotte.
And he's a very calm and just sweet guy. Don't have many words until he warms up to you, but he's always giving you this, welcoming, very like chill vibe. Like if you just met him, you would like, you feel like you can be yourself. I think that's a huge thing about like at that time of your life, you were still healing from a heartbreak. You were still trying to figure out where to be next in life. Mm-hmm. And to meet someone like that, to begin as a friend, having just a familiar face in a completely strange place was really helpful to you.
Yes, it was. He's a very peaceful presence. And you're right about, he's not, with me, he's very different, which is something I really love about him is just everyone's like, oh, David's kind of quiet, but with me, he's not. And I think that was kind of a big sign that like he feels very open. But he's just a very calming presence and honestly the kindest person I know.
So, but that obviously was one of the reasons she likes Charlotte, that added to it.
I swear it wasn't.
But it's so funny because I have to tell the audience and the world, I love this because when I first met Vanessa, we were still, even though she was talking to David, but we were talking more about maybe how to get over the heartbreak, a long-term relationship, and how to get back on your own and how to maybe facing future relationships. So I remember Vanessa had this rule for me. Every time when I cry or when I feel bad and sad, and she will go, Qiuyi, you need to find someone, the next person you date needs to look at you, say it to the camera, please.
You need to find someone who thinks that you shit gold.
There you go. So fast forward, New Year's Eve, Vanessa came with champagne. It was like, we're going to do a toast at New Year's Eve. Well, like when the countdown, I was like, oh, thank you so much. I was like deadly sick from flu. And then she also put out of her bag was like 2 jars of golden glitters.
Gold glitter, yeah.
So she was like, I saw this cute video on TikTok, which she played for me. And I was like, that is really cute. That was not a success.
No, it was not. I got the wrong kind. I think it was like a gold glitter powder.
Yeah.
So it did not look cool. It looked like you were going to gold.
However, I did. The next morning, I texted her. I said, I took some picture and video to prove your point.
I forgot.
I can tell my future partner, like, I didn't lie.
Not the intention.
I do gold.
You do. I love the confidence.
Sorry. You know,
literally,
we can bleep all the S word. But I thought that was very
We're
funny.
all grown-ups here.
But that's our relationship. So we have a very fun, lighthearted, and a very, very encouraging and supportive relationship. I felt very lucky to have met her as one of the very first people after I moved out. She also was one of the only people, very few, can handle my big emotions. Vanessa never had a problem of telling me her perspectives and her mind. She always come being very honest, even though I know with me, sometimes it can be intimidating and it can be like difficult, but she always like,
I feel like you and I like do that very well because
with
I know
each other.
Sometimes I'm very blunt and direct.
Yeah.
I mean, my intentions are great, but sometimes
Always.
I just forget to hold back a little bit and kind of, but you and I, we have differing opinions sometimes, but we handle it so we never get heated arguments or anything. We really appreciate each other's perspectives, and I think that helped a lot. Especially when you and I met, we were in the same place. She
was a few months ahead of me, so I think she was my rock. She really was. She was my secondary therapist. Yeah.
Yeah, I always say that. You were like my second therapist.
We have when you are going through a bad breakup, like you always, when I say bad, I'm just, long-term breakup. It's, you always needed a lot more therapists than just one. Okay. So your girlfriends all took on that role. Yeah.
Yeah. I always say two things in the beginning got me through therapy, got me through the breakup, which was first therapy. And then second, my mother. And moving here, I didn't have my mother close to me. Of course, we FaceTime all the time, but I didn't have her close to me. So the friendships that I made here are what got me far and also built the happy life that I made. You were my first. I remember when we met, I brought a book that I relied on. That was like a breakup book, and I had all the pages folded, the ones that got me through the breakup and everything.
She gifted to me
because when we were talking, it was just I felt like you were going through exactly what I was going through. In the group that we made, the four of us, I'm really happy that I had that, especially in the beginning. It was all four of us had just gotten out of long-term relationships. I call us the breakup crew, but you came up with something much better than that.
The unbreakable ladies.
The unbreakable
I think it's a lot better than the breakup crew.
It sounds like we kind of got dumped the way I said it, which is not the case for all of us.
No, we dumped them. I'm just kidding.
We found a better life. But no, it was exactly what I needed to move forward, especially in a new city. It gave me a lot to be able to have someone to talk to
support
about
system,
right? Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Away from your family, you've been close and always there for 25 years.
Especially because three out of the four of us were far away from our family.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely.
That was helpful. To have someone to talk to about that.
And you mentioned your mom a couple times, so I want to bring this up. I don't think we touched on it, but you're first generation American. Yes. So Vanessa's mom, parents both actually from Peru.
From Lima, Peru, yeah. They were born and raised.
And I know your mother is such a strong woman. She's a great example for you as what a woman can do. I think you mentioned to me she didn't really speak English when she came here, put herself through school, raised 3 kids on her own, and become a professor now, right?
Yes.
She teaches.
So my mom is she's a Notre Dame professor, greatest person I know. She's a great example. And she came here when she was pregnant with myself and my twin brother. And
yes, she is a twin, by the way.
Yes.
Another fun fact. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So she did not know a word of English, and she went to school and got her, she was an accountant in Peru, but that did not carry over here. So she went and got her master's, and my grandmother helped raise us a little bit for the first 3 or 4 years or something. So that was a huge help. But my mom is my inspiration for everything. It's just she's taught me how to be independent. And after a year and a half ago, when I was going through all of that stuff, she was my rock. She was my support, and she kind of taught me how to rebuild.
I think she took you in and really
I stayed with her for a few months.
Provide a safe place. I think that's another thing my parents did for me too, because Asian parents, they're always pretty strict, but more so have very high standard, high expectation. I'm the only child generation. So that just intensifies it, 100 times. Growing up, I've always felt I can do nothing wrong. So when I ended the last relationship, at the time I was 35 and I felt this humongous amount of pressure, societal pressure. And I feel like I let my parents down, like, oh, it didn't work out because they came forward to witness the engagement and all. So, but I totally hear you is, they really stood up. Like they really like came through for us, even with a completely different culture, even with the kind of support they've never received in their lives. Right. They love us so much, then they just know how to show up for us. And they did. And I think we were very lucky to have, parents like that.
Yeah, what you said about, it's the same with my parents or with my mother who raised me. It was just, I felt like I was letting her down. And so I knew that she would be very supportive, but she surprised me with just how supportive she was. I think because she went through something worse than what I went through. I was very lucky to have her. I was shocked. I thought I had let her down and I thought she would be disappointed that I kind of had to restart my life because, I lost my house. I lost what I considered my family, my pets and all of that. So, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her and the example that she set.
Yeah. Like you can do anything and you can always start over again. I remember my dad, joking, like I was saying, how bad I feel. My dad is a very stern person. Like he is the typical Asian man you can imagine, not K-pop, like not
the complete opposite.
Traditional Asian man, very few words, very
I think he's adorable. Like the pictures I've seen, he looks adorable.
He's adorable now. He wasn't adorable then. But anyway, so he actually was so sweet and he goes, "Oh, you're going to be fine." And I was like, "Well, Dad, I'm getting older." He was like, "Oh, we're going to have grandchildren just a few years down the road." I'm like, I'm wondering if that's ever going to happen, and my dad goes, "There's a woman having children in their 40s all the time nowadays." I'm like, "Where did you hear that?" But
it's true.
But they're just taking the pressure away from you. Yeah. They were trying to give you hope. They were trying to tell you you're not a damaged good. You're not like anything behind in life. Like, my dad actually told me he's proud of me for the first time.
I remember that shocked you.
That really shocked me. And told me to chill. My dad has the best advice for me for dating. He was like, honey, I feel like when you go on dates and you feel like you have to figure out if that's the end game, like if this is the one. And he was like, just go out there, just make friends, just get to know each other. I'm like, who are you? This is not an Asian concept at all.
Find someone who thinks you should go.
Yes. I need to introduce you guys to. He would approve that concept.
Which is probably not the classiest thing to say about relationships, but
it's true. Yeah. But also, I think my dad was really a big factor of me starting this podcast with my friends because he encouraged me to go back to what I really feel passionate about. So thanks, Dad. So moving away from parents, and I know you also have 2 brothers. One is a twin, right? So that's like very, very, like, to me, cool. And
cool to me too.
Yeah. And he lives in Chicago. Both of them are still.
My twin brother lives in Chicago and my older brother lives in Indianapolis. So that was such a hard thing. I think that was the hardest part for me, moving away from the Midwest, because my mother and my 2 siblings, which are my immediate family, were located there. But we're very close. I talk to them all the time. I FaceTime them. So I still have that same relationship with them, even from a distance, that I did before.
If Vanessa allowed us, or like if the siblings agree, if you guys are lucky enough, I really want to show you guys one of the things they did for their mom. Like they did a JCPenney, Macy's photo shoot. So cute.
I'll have to send you those pictures. Yes.
I hope the viewers get a chance to see it.
It was fun. I was surprised when we went to JCPenney to do it. They said that now they do more awkward photo shoots than they do normal
the glamour shots,
which are, the photos didn't turn out as awkward as I had hoped, but we gifted them to my mother about a month ago for her birthday. She cried quite a bit.
Of course.
But it was good to have those pictures. Yeah. And she's like, "I'm so glad you did this now when you're younger." And I was like, "Great, thank you."
I bet. I'm very happy that you guys have that close relationship. And then, I think, because this episode, we're really talking about moving and relocating. How does that fit into your culture? Because I know for us, I think, historically, at least Chinese people, they all grow up in the same area. They have like family. But when the economy actually boomed back in the, late 70s, early 80s, when I say like they opened up the economy and they continue to get better and better. And more people start to moving over to the coastal cities to start working and making more money, right? Like improve your life quality. So moving becoming a very, very standard lifestyle, and traveling internationally wasn't really unheard of either, because you just always wanted your children to go somewhere better than you ever did. Mm-hmm. So for me, moving around in the States, I was talking to Larissa and previously Peter as well, has always been, this is my life. It's a necessary step. Mm-hmm. I don't know when you moved away, from South Bend, and, sound like your two brothers also moved away from the small town.
Yes.
Was that part of the Peruvian culture? Like it's accepted, or this is a new thing too?
So it is, in the Peruvian culture. I didn't have that firsthand experience growing up in Peru. I can just kind of talk about the experience I have a large mm-hmm. family, so I have quite a bit of cousins and just kind of the people that I know there. It is common for them to stay living in their household longer, especially if they move away. It's pretty much for two reasons. Either they're going off to school, or they're getting engaged, or they're getting into a relationship, but mostly marriage by that point. So most of my cousins, they went to school, so they left pretty early. And then the ones that didn't, even the ones that did go to school, they still stayed. And I had a cousin that stayed with his parents until about 35, 40. So it was common for them to stay longer and just to be there for their parents. So for my family in specific, it was common for the three. We all moved out when we were about 18. All three of us to go to school. Once I left and went to Muncie, Indiana for a little bit. So it was about 3.5 hours away. But I moved back to South Bend. But even then, I didn't move back in with my parents. It was kind of, I think I took on more of the American culture in that aspect of moving out at 18. And I think my siblings did as well, because we were raised here. My twin brother and I were born here. My older brother was born in Peru. But we took on that American culture of once we left, we didn't come back, but we were there for family. So for us, it was still big, but I wouldn't say it was as big as it would be in the Peruvian culture.
I see. But it's became something, it didn't create any ripples in the family.
Oh, no, not at all. If anything, my mother understood very well that was, she always knew we had a little bit more of the American culture than we did the Peruvian. We grew up in the Hispanic lifestyle, but she was not surprised by the fact that I think she expected us to move out at 18.
So tell me more about this, because I think you and I, the differences we experience is, my parents have no knowledge of American life and American culture, anything about it. It was just they heard through me. But you obviously is the product of both cultures.
Yes.
Do you think like that in your life helped you? Because I know you also have the challenge, because I don't mean any disrespect. If I was wrong, please tell me, guys. But I think it's called white passing, right? Like you still can, you look less Hispanic, like when some people see you. Yes. So my point is like, do you, like growing up, do you see any cultural clashes, or, do you feel like it's easy for you emerging to one culture than the other, or like you can be a chameleon, like easily switch back and forth?
No, for me, it was more of a feeling of not fitting into either one. Like I didn't really feel like I fit into the Hispanic culture. Spanish was my first language, and I kind of lost that a little bit once I went to school. But I just did not feel like I fit into the Hispanic, because I do look white, and people are very surprised when they find out I'm Hispanic.
They often assume you don't speak Spanish.
Yeah,
right?
I normally don't tell them either. I think that's kind of...
I love it when people speak Spanish around her, like judging her or saying things about her, and then...
Yeah, I made a close friend in high school once. I remember I was in class, and her and another person were talking badly about me in Spanish. I let it go on for a few weeks because I liked hearing it. I was just kind of interested. And then one day I just decided to surprise her and speak Spanish and respond. And she's like, oh my gosh, you understood all of that.
The shit I talk.
Yeah. I don't know how we became friends after that, but we did. But people are very surprised after when they find out I'm Hispanic, because I was reading an article a while ago and it talks about how people or children of the Hispanic children are speaking Spanish less and less. And it's because when they come here into America, they go to school and they're kind of, I don't want to say made fun of, but in a way they're kind of pulled away from speaking Spanish as much. They're taught more to speak English. And so when they're around other Hispanics and they start speaking Spanish, because they've kind of lost that touch a little bit, sometimes the other Hispanics tend to make fun of them or kind of ridicule them for their
accent.
Or they're not saying things the right way. And so that makes them pull back even more. And so they start speaking less and less. And that was the same for me. Kind of just, I don't experience that now as much, but growing up, if I did speak Spanish and I said something that was wrong, a little bit of ridicule came with it. So I kind of lost touch with the Hispanic side. So I didn't really feel like I fit in there. But then also growing up in Indiana, there wasn't a huge amount of diversity. And so I didn't really feel like I fit into the American culture either, because I went back to a Hispanic household and that was kind of the culture that I was raised in a little bit more. So
you're still different.
Yes. Yeah. So I kind of struggled with identifying with either one. I just kind of felt lost in the middle.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But I think that's...
I learned to deal with it.
That's why I want to ask you about that, because I feel like a lot of the first generation Americans from any culture felt that way. Like my Asian American friends, I've heard the similar stories. It's like you have to constantly switch your identity, right? Like when you go to school, you have to be one person. When you are at home, you have to be respectful and become another person. But I think you adapted it so well. Like I really see you growing into your own identity. And I'm saying this and calling this out. She's very successful career-wise. She has a very loving partner right now. Like their relationship is beautiful. It's very supportive of each other. They are very like, they just complementary to each other. And it's family also got along very well. Yeah. To say all this is to all the younger generations. If, you're struggling, your family are immigrants and then you were born, raised here, you felt like an outsider constantly. Please know you will get to the other side. You will build your own identity. You will become someone. You are special. You are nothing less. You are nothing wrong. And you will have a bright future. So just hang in there for a few years longer. We've all been a teenager at some point. We all felt that way. But truly, it gets better. So
yeah, those are wise words, especially growing up, like feeling like you don't really fit in. You'll grow into your identity.
Yeah. And look at her. There we go. We had a short break and we just talked all the inappropriate subjects. Yes. So get out of our system so now we can talk back to you.
Back to being classy.
I know. But V, I want to know all the time, when you spend in Charlotte, it's been a year. So do you feel like, this would be the home for the next few years? I definitely know, with the David in the picture, that's increased the chance. But what are some of the things you really like Charlotte and you really don't?
Number one is the people, just everyone being new here. Everyone is so welcoming and so kind and just very open to meeting new people. And that was something I didn't experience a lot in Indiana. So just the openness and friendliness from other people is one of my favorite things. There's always something to do here, just all the time. During a weekend or a weekday, there's always something. Hiking. I thought I would really miss being close to the water, because I think the coast is 3.5 hours away, around 3.5.
Yeah.
So mountains, you can go on a nice mountain hike within 2 hours or something. I didn't expect to love hiking as much as I did. So I did get into hiking. The skyline we talked about, I adore the Charlotte skyline. I don't really like spending much time in Uptown, to be honest.
I will pause there because I want to tell a really cool story about Vanessa. We went to hike together and I was like, drenched in sweat because we're doing like high, like it's my fault because there was like 2 paths. You have like a scenery, but 2 miles or like a really.
It was your choice?
It was like really steep, but it's only 1 mile. I'm like, well, I have a dog at home. We really need to go. Like, let's just choose the shorter route. And then I was dying.
That was rough. That was a good one. That was my first time hiking with you guys. Yeah. And you picked that was the dick or the like ridiculous, or what did they call it? They called it strenuous.
Yes.
Yes.
And mind you, we did not wear hiking shoes, and I had a tear like here in my hip area. So, but
do you remember my sweat towel?
That's what I was getting into. So what happened is like this no hiking, never hiked, and like hiking is not my thing person. She looked at me struck. She was like, here. It was a sweat towel. It was a microfiber. What do you call it?
A microfiber sweat towel. Yeah, I had read online to bring towels to wipe your sweat off with. So I brought 2.
It was so cute.
It was pink too, pink and fluffy.
Yes. And she was like, here. I was like, for a person who doesn't hike, this is very well prepared.
I had Googled I'm a researcher. Wow. I love to research. So I Googled what to like pack in your.
Thank you very much for your help.
Well, my towel was covered. It was. And that was one of the things I do know that has been an adjustment is the temperature. That was rough.
It was very humid. It's the humidity really got us, and also the elevation. But it's so funny because we have 2 other friends, Sarah and AJ. Like they were gone. They were like enjoying themselves. Those 2 like, like the old lady in the movie. Yeah. But we survived. We're here today.
Did. Yeah. And I think that hiking trip is what made me start liking hiking so much because we did. So
you're welcome.
Okay. You are. Yes, thank you. We did a very difficult hike, and then afterwards we went to the Malinville Falls Winery.
Yeah, it was a beautiful winery.
Yes.
Yeah,
and so hiking and like burning all those calories, and it was good. Like climbing over tree stumps and like over rocks and stuff, and then to have a couple of glasses of wine after, I think was the best intro to hiking. And I've taken a few people back to the same hiking trail.
And Qiuyi was driving. And I do not want to fit into the stereotype, but I am not your best direction.
You did so well.
No, but the funny thing is I offered to drive, right? And then I had a GPS on, and I decided to just not to have it interrupt my music. So I kept missing the turn because I'm not paying attention to it. And Vanessa was like, turn.
No, she said AJ, I think that caught it.
You were like,
great.
but Vanessa was in a very calming way. Like all the other 2 in the back was like, turn, Qiuyi, turn. And I was like, well, I'm going to turn into the traffic right now. Vanessa was more like, oh yeah, you turn here. Yeah, it's gonna be okay. Eventually. No, she was like, it will be okay, and I did. I felt much calmer. So
I thought you drove really well. We got there. It was
in one piece. That's the goal. That's the bar.
We didn't have phones or like cell service, so we were just completely blind the entire time that we were there. It was great. It was like a great pull away from life a little bit.
I'm telling you, when you're just freshly out of a breakup, like you feel like you can do anything. Like you were.
The small things really count. Right. I love that. Yeah.
It was a very pick me up trip. We had a great time.
But we burned a ton of calories.
It's for sure. Yes. Sorry. Going back to Uptown Skyline.
I don't spend a lot of time in Uptown. It seems like everyone here does not like to spend much time in Uptown. I think it's because they charge ridiculously for parking. Yes.
And everything else.
Yes. So just the skyline kind of always having something to do. And I think the people is what drew me to Charlotte the most. I found it a lot easier to make friends in Charlotte than I did in Indiana.
Really?
I wouldn't say all of it. I think just where I grew up specifically in Indiana, because it was so much smaller and you grew up kind of hanging out with the friends you made in a younger time.
I see.
So here, I think because everyone's so new to Charlotte, everyone is more open to making those new friendships and stuff. So I have made a lot of good friends being here, friends who have the same experiences, like you being away from your family. You and I like bonded really quickly over that. And then also like the difficult time we went through of kind of rebuilding our life. I've made some friends from the Midwest, which is one specifically from Indiana, which was, I didn't think I would find someone else from Indiana here. So just friends from the Midwest and people who are also kind of going through the same life experiences that I have has been an amazing just support to start over new.
Yeah. And I think that was another thing. A lot of people would say when you're getting older, it's harder to make friends. But I think my experience is the opposite. I think if you do carry a positive attitude and if you go there, have an open mind and you I really think in my 30s, making friends seemed to be easier because people were more mature and they, you know if this is your person or not pretty quickly, but you still remain like very respectful.
Like the level of friendships I feel like got stronger making new friends in the 30s. I think that saying is like so old, a little bit older, of making friendships in your 30s is like a lot harder, because I mean, for us, Bumble BFF was like a huge thing, but it also encouraged us to meet new people and to kind of like sit down and have an open conversation with strangers that wouldn't say was as typical back then. But that just kind of made me feel more comfortable to new friendships and stuff. And before, we didn't have things like Bumble BFF.
Yeah.
In smaller cities like South Bend, I don't think Bumble BFF would have been as helpful as it is me being in Charlotte.
Because it's a closed knit, right?
Yeah.
But I want to share this with a lot of like women who are moving around, because of your career, because of your relationship, because of your family. Regardless, I think it's something, Vanessa and I, we look back, we reflect on, we feel like, we kind of let our own circle, own network go outside of, our family, obviously. But like we poured all of ourselves into our previous relationships by choice. I wouldn't say the other person asked us to do any of this, to be clear, but I think we were almost single-mindedly wanting to make sure that is the most important relationship in our lives at the time, and to devote ourselves to it. And now looking back, I think that was one of our biggest kind of misstep we thought. And we think, if we're in any relationship, like now she's definitely not doing the same with David. And I think David is happy. She's happy. The relationship is very healthy. But just to bring that up to a lot of women out there, you can love someone, but you can always still at the same time having your own circle. And because that one person cannot be everybody for you. And also you shouldn't short yourself for losing a platform for yourself to feel fulfilled, to feel recharged, and to get the kind of love and validation from so many different individuals, right? Like this year for me, I've learned so much about I am likable, I am lovable. Because if you're only hearing from one person, everybody has their emotions and it comes and goes. And if the other person gives you mostly negative feedback in the sense of, your ability to mingle and merge into their circles, that kind of make you feel like I'm less likable, or, oh, I'm really difficult. Like you hear this and it registers truly. But if you do have your own support system at the same time, the likelihood of you believing in that or shifting yourself or losing yourself is much lower. So
yes, that's very true. You and I were both like that. We invested so much. And I don't think you're right. We willingly did that. And I think that for a while, I thought that was the mentality
our culture
you were supposed to have. Yes.
I think a lot to do our
like
culture.
Fully invested to this one person. And I think maybe a part wanted to be so invested, but I think that was just kind of what we were. In my mind, I was taught, I was not taught, but in my mind, it was just kind of, if you're in a happy relation, or if you're in a good relationship, you always want to be with that person. And I shut out a lot of my friends. Now I will never make that same mistake. And I make sure that with David, especially, I always encourage him to go out with his friends. I always see you. You're very important to me. You and I have very good conversations. I need Qiuyi time. That's what I put in my phone, is Qiuyi time. But that level of friendship.
I'm so helpful.
We do. We have great conversations. It gives me a lot of clarity. So I will never make that mistake again. And I think that's,
me neither.
Yeah, it's just, I think both worlds are very important to have that friend group and to maintain that friend group. And I know for me, it's very important to him, or for him to also have the same friend group and have that level of growth. But that's kind of where the whole gold thing kind of came from. It's just, I did not have the level of confidence in my last relationship that I have now.
Exactly. I think that's the key, right? If the person made you feel very secure and prioritized in your relationship, you probably feel less eager or like the need to be there all the time, to still working on it, to like nourish that relationship, because you feel a sense of lacking there, to say. But again, there were a lot of reasons contributed to that. This is not a knock on our exes in any way. I think a lot to do with our own growth.
Yes.
Keep calm and perseverance.
Yes, I love that.
But I think the key is to realize your circle and what you like, you love to do, what fulfills you, what makes you feel passionate, validated. It's sometimes outside of that person, and that is fine. That doesn't mean that's a wrong person. It also doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. I think my parents' relationship are so codependent upon each other, which is also very common in their generation in China. So I never had a different kind of example. So hard to put an unhealthy label on them, right, growing up. But I think we all learn, we all grow into our own fabulous individuals. So we realize, sometimes you make mistakes. You make those mistakes in the relationships. And like we both said, because it's also wasn't such a secure relationships for us, it kind of just intensified some of the choices we had. But now looking back, I think you live, you learn. You will never.
And I think it works for some people. I think some people they are happiest when they're just their life, I don't want to say revolves around, but they spend a majority of their time with that one person.
Like you my parents.
Right. You and I were more outgoing. We like to go out with our girlfriends. We like to kind of have that. We're not, we're not out late partying. We're not doing any of that stuff, but we need girl time. And that's something.
Or men time. I hang out with Nawar, which is my cameraman here and my editor.
Hi, Nawar.
Yeah, behind the scene, I hang out. Hi. Which he will eventually be on the show too.
One day.
Yes, this Egyptian mysterious musician / programmer as well. He is a wonderful story. You will get his side soon. But also, Peter on my first episode. Yes. I also, hang out with Juan, like my trainer. My trainer's girlfriend. And do I have any other guy friends?
Does she know her?
Some. I do, like Breon. I just had I had dinner with Breon the other day. What I'm saying is I think you need a variety, right? Like you need different type of individual too.
Yeah, I don't think it's just, you just need your friends overall. It's not just like girl time. I appreciate girl time, especially your inappropriate conversations at time. You just need that sometimes. But just friendships overall. I think for some people it's not as strong, or maybe they don't depend on it as much. But I think for you and I, it's a very important part, and it's kind of what contributes to our happiness. And for me, I will never forget that importance again, like I did in the past.
Yeah. Cheers to that. So much growth this year.
Look at us.
Yeah. So I think we don't have too much time left, but first of all, I want to thank Vanessa for being so open and sharing her culture, sharing her family. We're definitely inviting her back. But I think, thank you for sharing a little bit here and there with your relationship and like how to I think next episode we should talk about how us, really healed and lean on each other and other friends and all that. But on this one, I think from the relocating standpoint, I think she brought up a few really good points for everybody here. One is you really should do research. You should understand where you're moving to, the demographics of the place, but most importantly, you should spend some time there before you probably pull a trigger, if you can, right? If that's your own choice, not for work or anything else. But at the same time, give it some time. I think you need you spend like a good 2 to 3 months probably just getting acclimated into the new neighborhoods and stuff, even though with David's help. But I think David also injured himself shortly after you guys met.
Yeah, the day after our first date. Yeah.
So Vanessa was on her own, exploring a lot.
A lot of lazy nights in.
Yeah. But he is worth it. He's a really, really good guy.
He's great.
Yeah. So, and that being said, we also talked about trying to get out there, trying to do things, trying to build your network. Yeah, as soon as you can. I'm not saying like something, network as a work function, professional. You should have those too, but more so in the sense of gather good people, gather your army around you, make you feel like you're not alone at a strange place. And that really helps to put your roots down in a new place.
Yes, I think you're the perfect example of that. You're very good at networking and doing all of that stuff and just like being very open to new people. So I think that's you've rebuilt a really good life. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. But, you know, this is another story. I also have a very high standard of friends, apparently.
Yes, I made the cut.
But overall, I think, Vanessa, would you say Charlotte is the right place?
Yes, I think eventually I want to, since I work remote, I would like to take advantage of the ability to be able to work remote and kind of travel a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I do feel like Charlotte is my home, and I would like to come back to it.
Aww.
Even if I leave for a little bit, I think long term, I think I found my home.
Queen City, you earned her heart, and I'm very happy you moved, so I get to meet you.
Oh, me too.
Yay! So thank you everyone for tuning in today, and to hear Vanessa and I being goofy with each other. She's definitely coming back. We have so much more to talk about.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I had a blast.
Cheers. We'll see you next time. Bye now.